everyone, Tim Schofield here, and Samsung just released another variant of the Galaxy S25, this time called the Edge, which is not the same as previous Edge variants that had curved sides. This time around, it's an extremely thin phone at just 5.8 millimeters. Curious to hear if you're interested in a very thin phone. Samsung's even offering a lot of trade-in deals, up to $800 off. I'll link to everything down in the description, so if you are interested in the Edge, link below. Otherwise, you get a lot of the exact same features as the S25 lineup, even with the Ultra. So I want to give some impressions on this phone and even compare it to the S25 Plus and S25 Ultra. Let's get started. There are three colors to choose from: titanium jet black, titanium silver, and titanium icy blue. I think icy blue is my favorite. They went with the titanium name because the frame around the phone is made of titanium, and also it's only 163 grams, so not only is it thin, it's very light. And I have to say, it is kind of an experience to hold it in your hand. You're just not used to having a phone that thin. With a 6.7-inch display, it's the same screen size as the S25 Plus, but side by side, you'll see there's a pretty significant difference in the thickness. One big perk about it being so thin is it'll fit easier in your pocket, your bag, your purse, wherever you're putting it, but also when you throw on a case, it will equal the thickness of a regular phone. You'll see side by side with the S25 Plus, it's just about the same thickness once you put one of the Samsung cases on it. Side by side with the Galaxy S25 Plus, you'll notice the bezels are just a little bit thinner, so when you're looking at the display, it just feels a little bit more premium. And then overall, here's side by side with the S25 Plus and S25 Ultra, with all the colors side by side, just to give you a good idea of a comparison with how thick this phone really is. It is, in the hand, noticeably different, and you can feel a big difference. Remember, not just how thin it is, but also the weight between these phones. Having this sort of thickness in a phone with flagship specs is very intriguing and probably something some people are considering. You do sacrifice a little bit of camera power without any sort of zoom lens, but you do get a 200 megapixel main sensor. They're also able to crop that main sensor up to 2x for optical light quality, similar to what Apple does with the iPhone 16e. Interestingly enough, it only zooms up to 10 times zoom, so even that digital zoom doesn't get any higher. You do also get an ultra-wide angle lens at 12 megapixels. So again, not quite the same quality of a camera system as the Ultra will be. Also worth noting, you get that 4K 120 frames per second video recording along with up to 8K 30 frames per second. And like I said, it's quite the experience. Having such a thin phone in your hand with that display, it doesn't quite feel like you're just holding a screen, but it's getting kind of close. You do get a 6.7-inch dynamic AMOLED display at 1440p resolution, so a higher resolution than some 1080p phones. Not only that, it will go from 1 to 120 hertz refresh rate, so everything looks incredibly smooth. And I have to say, it looks fantastic. Samsung does a really good job with the displays on their phones. I also want to point out you get that IP68 rating, so it does still have that water and dust resistance. But don't get me wrong, there are some drawbacks to having such a thin phone. The two main reasons: battery life and thermal efficiency. So it does have a 3900 milliamp hour battery, which is kind of small. I'm not expecting the best battery life out of this phone, so if you're a really heavy user, don't expect it to last all day. Also, thermal efficiency. If you're playing heavy games, it might start to throttle. You might see lower frames per second over a shorter period of time that you would see with a larger phone such as the S25 Ultra. The Edge does still have the Snapdragon 8 Elite flagship processor that the Galaxy S25 lineup has, so you will still get that very powerful processor. Even just picking the Galaxy S25 Edge up off the table, right away you can tell how thin it is. So of course you have less real estate to hold on to on the side, but I didn't find it uncomfortable while using it at all. And even when I'm on the phone, you can just tell it's really thin. Again, it doesn't quite feel like you're just holding a display, but you know, it is a noticeable difference than other phones out there. It's interesting to see the bottom with that charging port. It's not quite as thin as the USB-C port, but it's getting there. You get 25 watts of charging plus 15 watts of wireless charging. Also, you have Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2 protection on the front, so hopefully it's just more sturdy. It is glass is glass, but you know, it still should be very sturdy. On top of that, 12 gigs of RAM starting at 256 gigs of storage. So exactly what you would expect out of a flagship phone. And like I said, Samsung is really sort of treating this like it's a flagship phone, but just extra thin. It does ship with One UI 7, and you get all of those Galaxy AI features, including being able to erase things from images. Samsung does a good job with that, actually. And of course, a whole slew of Galaxy AI throughout the phone. Anyways, the Galaxy S25 Edge is a very premium feeling phone with the titanium sides, how thin it is. It's just a unique experience. I definitely recommend checking it out for yourself. The camera doesn't quite do it justice. In person, you see the phone and you just say, wow, this is really thin. Anyways, that's it for me on the Galaxy S25 Edge. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Samsung is kind of going out on a limb with this. A different release. Haven't seen one like this before. A lot more to come on the S25 Edge, so be sure to subscribe so you're notified when those videos go live. Again, all pre-order links are down below. And as always, thanks for watching.